Good morning, Life Leaders. My name is Mrs. Davis, and I'm the Campus Testing Coordinator here at Life School Red Oak Elementary. So you may see me around carrying lots of papers to different teachers and helping out wherever I can, but I've taught first and second grade as well, so I maybe was one of your teachers at one point in time, and so that's extra exciting if you're watching this video. I was looking at the leader profile cards, and I started thinking about different situations that I've had in my life and different situations I've helped some of you as students walk through in your life. Was there ever a time that you were going through something really, really hard, but you had to choose to stay positive and not give up, even though it was really hard? Or maybe you had to think about, these are things I can control, and these are things I can't control. So I'm going to focus on the positive things that I can impact versus the negative things that I can't impact. Have you ever had to work to have a better outcome in something versus just saying things may never change? If that describes you, that means that you are describing the life leader profile card of resiliency. This card says the ability to recover from or adjust easily to misfortune or change with optimism. So working to stay positive, even in hard situations. I love books, and if you were in my first or second grade class, you know I loved reading books to all of you. One of my favorite books to read was, and still is, Chrysanthemum by Keven Henkes. I'm going to read you this book today, and I want you to think about how Chrysanthemum is resilient through this book. The day she was born was the happiest day in her parents' life. She's perfect, said her mother. Absolutely, said her father. And she was. She was absolutely perfect. Her name must be everything she is, said her mother. Her name must be absolutely perfect, said her father. And it was. Chrysanthemum. Her parents named her Chrysanthemum. Chrysanthemum grew and grew and grew. And when she was old enough to appreciate it, Chrysanthemum loved her name. She loved the way it sounded when her mother woke her up. She loved the way it sounded when her father called her for dinner. And she loved the way it sounded when she whispered it to herself in the bathroom mirror. Chrysanthemum, chrysanthemum, chrysanthemum. Chrysanthemum loved the way her name looked when it was written with ink on an envelope. She loved the way it looked when it was written with icing on her birthday cake. She loved the way it looked when she wrote it herself with her fat orange crayon. Chrysanthemum, chrysanthemum, chrysanthemum. Chrysanthemum thought her name was absolutely perfect. And then she started school. On the first day, Chrysanthemum wrote her name and wore her sunniest dress and her brightest smile. She ran all the way to school. Hooray! Said Chrysanthemum. School! She must have been pretty excited for school that day. But when Mrs. Chud took roll call, everyone giggled upon hearing Chrysanthemum's name. I don't think I would like that. It's too long, said Joe. It scarcely fits on your name tag, said Rita. She was pointing at her name tag. I'm named after my grandmother, said Victoria. You're named after a flower. Chrysanthemum wilted. Kind of makes me think of like how a flower without water wilts in the sunlight. So I guess Chrysanthemum kind of wilted. She did not think her name was absolutely perfect. She thought it was absolutely dreadful. The rest of the day wasn't much better. During nap time, Victoria raised her hand and informed Mrs. Cloud that Chrysanthemum name was spelled with 13 letters. That's exactly half as many letters as there are in the entire alphabet, Victoria explained. Thank you for sharing with us, Victoria, said Mrs. Chud. Now put your head down. Sounds like Mrs. Chud wasn't too happy with what Victoria was pointing out. If I had a name like yours, I'd change it, Victoria said, as the students lined up to go home. I wish I could, thought Chrysanthemum miserably. Seems like right now she's kind of taking it kind of hard. She doesn't really know how to react to her name. Welcome home, said her mother. Welcome home, said her father. School is no place for me, said Chrysanthemum. My name is too long. It scarcely fits on my name tag, and I'm named after a flower. Oh, psh, said her mother. Your name is beautiful and precious and priceless and fascinating and winsome, said her father. It's everything you are, said her mother. Absolutely perfect, said her father. Chrysanthemum felt much better after her dinner. Macaroni and cheese with ketchup. And an evening filled with hugs and kisses. That night, Chrysanthemum dreamed that her name was Jane. It was an extremely pleasant dream. The next morning, Chrysanthemum wore her most comfortable jumper. She walked to school as slowly as she could. Oh, I remember like the day before, she was really excited, like running, hooray, ready for school. But today, she was walking pretty slowly. She dragged her feet in the dirt. Chrysanthemum, 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 she wrote. She even looks like a flower, said Victoria, as Chrysanthemum entered the playground. Let's pick her, said Rita, pointing. Let's smell her, said Joe. Chrysanthemum wilted again. She did not think her name was absolutely perfect. She thought it was absolutely dreadful. Right now, it seems like Chrysanthemum is kind of having a hard time being resilient. She doesn't really know how to respond. Let's keep reading to see if she can become resilient. The rest of the day was not much better. During nap time, Victoria raised her hand and said, a chrysanthemum is a flower. It lives in a garden with worms and other dirty things. Thank you for sharing with us, Victoria, said Mrs. Chud. Now put your head down. I just cannot believe your name, Victoria said as his students lined up to go home. Neither can I, thought Chrysanthemum miserably. I was thinking about Victoria and this page. She's continually telling Chrysanthemum she doesn't like her name. You know, it kind of reminds me that maybe Victoria has some struggles in her life that she hasn't overcome yet. So maybe she feels like her only way to be resilient is to point out other people's flaws. Welcome home, said her mother. Welcome home, said her father. School is no place for me, said Chrysanthemum. They said I even look like a flower. They pretended to pick and smell me. Said Mother. They jealous and envious and begrudging and discontented and jaundiced, said her father. Who wouldn't be jealous of a name like yours, said her mother. After all, it's absolutely perfect, said her father. Chrysanthemum felt a trifle better after her favorite dessert was chocolate cake with buttercream frosting. Sounds pretty good. And another evening filled with hugs and kisses. Let's see what happens the next day of school. That night, Chrysanthemum dreamed that she really was a chrysanthemum. She sprouted leaves and petals. Victoria picked her and plucked the leaves and petals one by one until there was nothing left but a scrawny stem. It was the worst nightmare of Chrysanthemum's life. Chrysanthemum wore her outfit with 7 pockets the next morning. She loaded the pockets with her most prized possessions and her good luck charms. Chrysanthemum took the longest route possible to school. She stopped and stared at each and every flower. Chrysanthemum, 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 the flower seemed to say. That morning, the students were introduced to Mrs. Twinkle, the music teacher. Her voice was like something out of a dream, as was everything about her. She must be pretty special. The students were speechless, and I don't think that happens very often, especially with Victoria in the class. They thought Mrs. Twinkle was an indescribable wonder. They went out of their way to make a nice impression. Mrs. Twinkle led the students in scales. Do, re, mi, fa, sol. Then she assigned roles for the class musical. Victoria was chosen as the dainty fairy queen. Rita was chosen as the spiffy butterfly princess. Jo was chosen as the all-important pixie messenger. And Chrysanthemum was chosen as a daisy. I wonder how she'll feel about that. Chrysanthemum's a daisy, chrysanthemum's a daisy, Jo, Rita, and Victoria chanted, thinking it was wildly funny. I think that maybe Chrysanthemum is being forced to choose to be resilient, because I don't see her being mean back. Chrysanthemum wilted. She did not think her name was absolutely perfect. She thought it was absolutely dreadful. What's so funny? Said Mrs. Twinkle. Chrysanthemum was the answer. Her name is so long, said Jo. It scarcely fits on her name tag, said Rita. I'm named after my grandmother, said Victoria. She's named after a flower. My name is long, said Mrs. Twinkle. It is, said Jo. My name would scarcely fit on my name tag, said Mrs. Twinkle. It would? Said Rita, pointing. And, said Mrs. Twinkle, I'm named after a flower, too. You are? Said Victoria. Yes, said Mrs. Twinkle. My name is Delphinium. Delphinium Twinkle. And if my baby is a girl, I'm considering Chrysanthemum as a name. I think it's absolutely perfect. You know, I think Mrs. Twinkle maybe might show some social awareness. She's knowing what's going on. She can tell these other girls are being very ugly. And she is interjecting and helping the situation. Chrysanthemum could scarcely believe her ears. She blushed, she beamed, and she bloomed. Chrysanthemum, chrysanthemum, chrysanthemum. Jo, Rita, and Victoria looked at Chrysanthemum longingly. Call me Marigold, said Jo. I'm Carnation, said Rita. My name is Lily of the Valley, said Victoria. Chrysanthemum did not think her name was absolutely perfect. She knew it was. I think she maybe knew all along that her name was perfect. But some people tried to convince her that it wasn't. Overall, the class musical was a huge success. Chrysanthemum was absolutely perfect as a daisy. Victoria only made one mistake. She completely forgot her lines as a dainty fairy. I think that happens sometimes. Chrysanthemum thought it was wildly funny. She giggled throughout the entire dance of the flowers. Sometimes when you start giggling, it's hard to stop. Eventually, Mrs. Twinkle gave birth to a healthy baby girl. And of course, she named her Chrysanthemum. Thank you for letting me read to you today. I hope you enjoyed this book as much as I did. I hope next time you read it, you think about our leader profile cards and how you can choose to be resilient even when times are tough. Bye-bye.